Hello, it's Katie here, and in today's video I want to talk a little bit about designing with beads. Now it's something that a lot of people ask me about, and to be honest it's quite difficult to explain because there are just so many ways in which you can design. There's a lot of different processes that you can use, and in a sense, a lot of it is actually quite intuitive. Some people have, a natural flair for design, and some people find it more of a struggle. I mean, personally, I think that design is something that anyone can do. We all have a designer in us. It's basically just the creative process, and we are all creative beings. But as I say, some people just take to this naturally and will just sit down with beads and create stuff. And other people, I think, sit down and feel like there is a process that they should be going through. There's steps that they need to be taking, none of which is really true, by the way. But it can be helpful if you're just starting out and you're not sure how to proceed, to have a few structures in place. So I want to show you one of the design processes that I use an awful lot. And I like to call this the evolutionary process, or possibly the what if question. So let me take you to my beading table and show you a series of projects that I've actually made so that I can explain how this process takes place. Okay, so this is what I call the evolutionary design process, or you could sometimes term it as the what if question. Basically, you start out with one idea. So this is my little Rivoli beaded box. It's a project I made a couple of years ago now. And the idea was creating a box using different flat shapes and also building those flat shapes around Rivolis. So actually you could possibly argue that there were two ideas in that concept. But anyway, this Rivoli beaded box is what I came up with from that. Now, I moved on a step and went, what if I added extra embellishment around those Rivolis? So instead of just the plain shape, we've got a flower pattern now. So we've actually still got a similar design, believe it or not. I don't know if you can even see the links between those, but it's the same concept of taking flat shapes and turning them into a beaded box. All I've done is add embellishment, so I've kind of developed one of those ideas a little. I've also changed the structure a little bit, so developing again. So all the time it's really asking those what if questions. Now if I move up here, we've got another development. This is my simple beaded box, which I teach as an online class. And that is the same concept. So we're creating flat shapes off a Rivoli, well in this case a chaton base, but same idea. And we're joining them together to create a box. So box and lid. So again, I don't know if you can see similarities, see the way in which things develop. But as I was making this, there was a point where I'd sat it down on the table and I could just suddenly see, oh my goodness, that looks like a teapot without its handle and spout. So guess what came next? Just a tiny evolution in that one basic design turns that simple beaded box into my teapot beaded box. And another innovation, as I'm working away on those projects, I'm thinking, well, actually, what else could this structure look like? What could it be turned into? Well, I ended up, first off, with a vase. So that was a pretty simple change up really, just taking that basic structure and adding the neck to make the vase. And also I took out the rivolis because you can do this just with seed beads. But then what does a vase need? Well, it wants some flowers to sit in the top, doesn't it? So we're coming back full circle to this idea of working shapes off. In this case, they're not rivolis, they're actual beads. But we've got the flower, so that's a nod back to the flower urn beaded box from earlier on. And we've got this same structure that creates the flowers that get to sit in the vase and form the lid for the box. So I'm not going to give you any spoilers as to where I'm going to be taking these ideas next. But I'm hoping that gives you a sort of sense of how I come up with ideas, how I design. It is really starting with one simple idea, making that work, and then as you're working on it, thinking, what if I did that instead? What if I changed this? And all of those what if questions will develop into other ideas till before you know it, you've got a complete set of beading projects that all had one basic starting point. Okay, so that's the evolutionary process, or the what if process, if you prefer that term. And it's a lovely process to use. As I said in the beginning, it's one of my favorites, and it's one of the ways in which I feel like I never run out of ideas. As I'm creating one thing, I'm always thinking about what I could just tweak, what if I did this instead, so that I then have another idea to try out next. And obviously if you're doing that, you're going to want to keep a notebook by you and jot down a few notes, otherwise you might forget some brilliant ideas. But that's just one way of looking at design. There's a lot of other different ways, and some of them are applicable no matter what project you're creating. Some of them might be more specific to certain types of project. I will try and put together a few more other videos looking at different ideas behind designing with beads. But if you're keen to get into something more right away, then I just wanted to quickly let you know about an online class that I run. It's teaching you to design a very specific item, so it's actually a bracelet. But the only reason I did that was because it's much easier to teach the design process on a specific project. That process is then applicable across everything else. So yes, you'll learn how to make the bracelet, but everything that you learn as you go through that class, you can then take and apply to whatever ideas it is you've got in your head. So if you're interested in finding out a bit more about that and, really learning a design structure that's easy to apply, I'm going to leave you the details of the class in the video description down below, so you can check that out. Meantime, thank you very much for watching today's video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and I will do a few more videos on designing with beads in the future, but I've also got lots of project inspiration on here. And if you have got aspirations to start designing, then my top tip is to learn as many techniques as you can. Because basically the more techniques you know, the more tools you've got in your belt for designing whatever it is you want to create. So again, videos are a great way to learn that, tutorials, other projects. But that gives you an idea to play with if you're already on the design path, a potential for learning if you want to take the online class, and just a top tip to get you started if this is all very new to you. So take care. I will be back again soon, and make sure you've subscribed so you don't miss anything. Thanks again.